Yep, I'm totally gonna clickbait this one, ruining my brand new throttle body. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pull this little intake port off of there. This is gonna be a boosted setup, so I don't want that thing there. So I'm gonna pull that little hose out and I'm just gonna weld the hole shut. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a tack weld on the back side of the set screws. So those set screws are kind of known to fall out on these throttle bodies. A lot of people will use red Loctite, and I'm just gonna put a little tack weld on it so it doesn't fall out. Loosens up, falls out, gets sucked into the engine, and this is a built bottom end, so I really don't want to take any chances with that. So let's get going on this. Alright, now I got it switched over to DC. Now I'll do just a little tack on the back side of this bolt that's in there. Alright, so we got the back side welded up and got the hole welded shut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the throttle stop because the throttle blade is actually catching on the housing. So I want it to stop using the throttle stop, not the housing itself. You can see underneath that throttle stop bolt, there's actually, you can see light through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust this thing so the throttle stop is actually opening up the throttle blade just slightly. Just like that. So now it's actually stopping here and not stopping on the housing because the blade can actually bind a little bit. When I got done welding this thing, I couldn't open it. So the blade actually got stuck. Another thing I can do is actually shine some light behind the blade. I can see a little bit through there now. So if I adjust it back to how it was before, you can see maybe a little tiny bit through, but you can see that it's a lot tighter. So I don't want it to be so tight that it's going to bind on the housing. Now we're adjusted back. See a little bit more light through. It's stopping using the throttle stop, and that's just where I'm going to leave it for starters. So I might have to open this up a little bit once I start doing the idle tuning and stuff, but for now I'm just going to leave it as far closed as I can and then go from there when I start to tune it. Alright, so next thing I'm working on is this coil bracket here. I just used, this was actually a piece of angle. I think it's like 1/8 inch by 2 inch. It was a piece of angle. I just cut it right at the bend. It's been in my scrap pile for quite a bit. So got this piece kind of mocked up, got the coil mocked up. This is a 9-inch wire, and what I'm going to end up doing is bending this thing down like this. So this will be probably bent up a little bit. I'm going to bolt this here. The bracket won't be, or the coil won't be hitting the valve cover, but the wire will actually be kind of pulled away from the header because the angle of the coil is going to be kind of faced down a little bit. So this piece here started as a piece just like this. I got kind of what I wanted out of it, and then I cut it and extended it. So what I think I'm going to do a little bit differently with this one is I'm going to weld these pieces on first, and then I'll be able to just trace this piece, and it should work pretty good. I'll be able to move the coil in a little bit, be able to move this coil in a little bit so it doesn't interfere with the catch can bung, and then I'll be able to just bolt all of them on like that. Just one bolt on the top of the coil, I'll probably go with that. I don't really think it'll be that big of a deal with just having the one bolt on there. If it becomes a problem or something later, I could always modify the bracket, but that's what I'm gonna go with. So I'll get this thing off, kind of figure out what I need to do to clean this thing up, and then weld the other pieces on, and we'll get the other side done. Then I'll mock up where the bolts need to be, and I'll get some bolts from the hardware store And then we should be good with that. Okay, so I got this mocked up on here. I'm gonna make sure I have a factory edge on here and on the top, because that's where the front and the top is gonna be. So then I don't have to worry about any waviness. You can see the bottom here, there's a little bit wavy, because I tried to cut this section with these tabs on there. So what I'm gonna try to do on this one is just cut flat all the way across, and then I'll weld the tabs on. And hopefully the bottom will be a little bit straighter. Most of that's going to be covered up with the coils anyways, so not really too concerned about it. But we'll get this thing cut quick. Ta-da! Okay, so we got 2 brackets now. I'll get them bolted up, and then I'll start to mock up the holes for the coils. Right, Bromo Sapiens. Check it out. All the coils are mounted. That's what it looks like on the passenger side. I did get matching hardware for all of it. These coils are a little, you know, rusty or beat up or dirty or whatever. I'm not too worried about that for now. I might either get new coils like this or paint these, but I'm happy with how it turned out. I do have plenty of clearance for all the plug wires. They look like they're touching the valve cover, but they're actually like a little bit off. There you can kind of see the gap. This side here is a little easier to see. So they're not rubbing, they're just real close, but I got plenty of clearance here. I do have to go get a different nut for the backside. I got all nylock nuts, so the bolt is flush with the end of the nut, but these are all nylocks. And there was one regular nut mixed in with the bin, so some fruit cup probably put it in the wrong spot, and then I did not verify before I left. So gonna run back and get another one, exchange my nut for a different nut. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It seems pretty sturdy, so we're gonna go with it for now. These are 9-inch wires. I went with this coil specifically because the coil connection is up higher than a lot of the other coils. A lot of the coils have the connection come out of the bottom of it. Here's just some regular heatsink coils with the connection coming out the bottom. Even a lot of the newer ones have the connection coming out the bottom side of it. So I chose this coil specifically just so I didn't have to raise the bracket up so high, because if it's coming out the bottom, I would have had to raise the bracket and the coils up like probably another inch or 2 inches. So I wanted to keep it somewhat close to the valve cover. And then I think with the connection being on the outside, I was able to kind of rotate it down a little bit to get the end away from the manifold. So you can see how it's not parallel with the valve cover, it's actually turned down a little bit. So I didn't have to go up as high, and then I was able to kind of tilt it with this style coil. So there was actually quite a bit of thought that went into it and planning that, and I think it turned out really good. So I did get this 8-orb coupler nipple, it's called, for the back side of the rail there for the regulator. So I'm going to keep working on finishing up the fuel system today. I just got to run the return line, and then I plan on welding an 8AN bung right to the back top side of the fuel cell. Instead of going in the 10AN bung on the top, I'm just going to use an 8 and then go in the side on the top. And then after that, I could probably start working on a little bit of wiring, getting the harness on, stuff like that. So I did get my stuff for the drive shaft today. I got a strange 4L80 yoke, a strange pinion yoke, some new 1350 U-joints, and all that jazz. So I can probably measure that up and then get the drive shaft measurements out. So maybe that'll be the rest of my mission for the day, so I can at least get the thing out, and if I for sure don't have any problems getting it back. So I'll see you in the next one.